There were moments where I was crying about this because I had worked so hard and I just couldn't understand how this organization that I was in, which was saying, find your voice, my voice wasn't good enough. I used to have to walk into a room with a marching band, and I got to the point where I just needed a string quartet, just kind of a more subtle way of leadership. Stop listening to other people tell you how you should speak. Just because they do it one way doesn't mean it's going to work for you. So be yourself, your authentic self. This did not define who I am as a person. It didn't take anything away from me. Nobody took my birthday away because this happened.
Welcome to Speak Arizona, the podcast for professionals ready to elevate their communication and leadership skills. Whether you're speaking to a crowd or leading a team, you'll get practical tips, expert insights, and inspiring stories. Join us as we dive into the craft of powerful communication and authentic leadership. Speak Arizona is powered by District 3 Toastmasters. Subscribe and take the next step to becoming the speaker and leader you want to be. Welcome to Speak Arizona, a podcast dedicated to empowering you to find your voice. Hi, I'm your host, Rupesh Parbhoo. I help technical experts upgrade from being the smartest person in the room to the most influential, one conversation at a time. Sometimes leadership isn't about the position you hold. It's about how you stand when that position doesn't come. We talk a lot about courageous leadership, about stepping up, about raising your hand, about putting your name forward. But we don't talk enough about what happens when the answer is no. This episode is not a comeback story, not yet. This is a conversation about being in the middle of that chapter, the one where you're ready, the one where you believed you could contribute at the next level, and the system, for whatever reason, moved in a different direction. Our guest today, Rose Swearingen, recently ran for Toastmasters International Director and was not nominated. Rather than turning this into a story of bitterness or blame, we're exploring something deeper. What does it look like to keep leading when you've been knocked down? How do you separate feedback from your identity? How do you stay collaborative, authentic, forward-focused when your confidence has taken a hit? This conversation is about resilience in real time, about finding your voice, especially after being told, directly or indirectly, that it may not be the right room for you. Rose has built a career and a life around growth, service, and leadership. Today, we're not talking about the title she didn't get. We're talking about the leader she continues to become. Let's dive in. Rose, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
I'm so excited to have this conversation because, like you, I think all of us have had these moments where we've been told no. Before we dive in, can you give us a little introduction of yourself?
Sure. I am a New Englander, lived in Boston, and went to high school in the town of Brookline, which is famous for some people. Conan O'Brien
Okay,
went to my high
that's
school,
famous
right?
for me.
And I studied theater arts originally, and then I decided I needed to eat and pay rent. So after working as an administrative professional, and after I think like my third or fourth layoff, I switched to marketing. Absolutely hated that. And then got a master's in organizational management, which is process management, change management, project management. And I made a switch from engineering construction to information technology in 2009 when the economy imploded and you needed to make a switch. Mm-hmm. And I have lived in Arizona since 2001. And I currently work for a large healthcare company doing resource planning and capacity management and analysis.
Thank you, Rose.
Thanks.
A lot of the things you work on are near and dear to my heart. I love talking about change management on this podcast, project management, coordination. So we're going to get into it. But I want to start with, I want to dive right in.
Okay.
So when you made the decision to run for international director, what did that represent for you? But before you get in, can you explain what that means to non-Toastmasters folks and then kind of go through your process?
Yes. So our organization was pretty much based on the Rotary system. Our founder, Ralph Smedley, was a Rotarian. So he based our organization on what he knew from being a Rotarian. So an international director is someone who sits on a board, and they are responsible for working with the executive committee of our organization and our CEO to come up with a strategic plan for our organization, whether that be a 1 year, 5 year, or 10-year plan. And you have to have served in several leadership roles within the Toastmasters organization. This is all volunteer. This is not paid positions in any way. So we are a volunteer-based organization. Our CEO, of course, is a paid, and we have staff that run our organization that are paid, but most of our leadership teams are made up of volunteers.
So what did it take for you internally when you put your name forward to say, I want to be an international director?
It took a lot of thought. It took a lot of conversations with my husband, Tim, because it is a big role. It's a 2-year commitment, and you campaign for this position. And I had hesitated moving forward to be an international director for many years, but really the process for me started about 5-6 years ago when I really kind of, I don't want to say I matured, but I did. I matured, even though I'm a 50-something-year-old
We're always growing
person, right? I kind of equate it to, I used to have to walk into a room with a marching band, and I got to the point where I just needed a string quartet, just kind of a more subtle way of leadership. So I spent a lot of time working on myself. I also changed myself physically. I lost over 100 pounds. I really wanted to make sure that if I was going to make this decision, I was physically, spiritually, mentally ready. I had grown significantly in my professional life, and I thought, okay, this is the time. And my mentor had said, look, I think it's time for someone like you to be on our board. You've got the experience. You're a great candidate. You should put your name forward. And really the process started immediately after our yearly convention in Anaheim in 2024. So I started working on it. I started planning and just kind of setting the groundwork for it. So it was really about a year and a few months of planning and processing and putting a team together and getting ready to make the announcement and then put my paperwork in.
I love what you said about being ready spiritually, physically, mentally, healthily. A lot of leaders, especially in maybe more the corporate world, you're only thinking about, am I technically ready? Do I have the skills? You may be burned out, you may be tired, you may have some home life issues, but I want to go for that next level. I love how you had that perspective.
Yeah, in Toastmasters, we have a speech competition, and at the end, we have our world championship of public speaking. And I happen to know a couple of world champions, and they all said, you have to be physically prepared. If you're going to take on a role, you have to have the stamina, because you really do campaign. And especially at our convention is when we meet most of our delegates. We're standing, we're talking. And I couldn't have done that in my previous state of health. Now I can stand for hours at a time and talk to people and not feel like I'm going to die at the end of the day, right? So I really wanted it all to be perfectly aligned. And I felt like this was the year that it was all going to be perfectly aligned.
And congratulations on the health journey and all of those things. I think that my listeners are probably tired of hearing me say this, but I spent a lot of time in the last couple of years becoming a yoga instructor and really building that piece in, because previously I was work, focus. And I would have these blowouts of things or burnouts of things and not really understand why. And it was my mental and physical and family wedges in my life of pie weren't in balance. And now I really, I'm continuing to understand that better. So I think that's an important message that I wasn't even expecting to get out of this conversation. So thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're physically ready, you're mentally ready, you're technically ready, you've got the experience, you've got the mentorship in the team, and then you find out you weren't selected. What was your honest reaction?
I was shocked because I am a 25-year Toastmaster. The district under the team that I got to lead, we were number 13 in the world out of all the districts in the world. And I had been a successful club growth director, a program quality director. Those are the two roles underneath the district director position. I had the plaques. I had been a successful region advisor. There were 7 districts that I coached and 6 were distinguished or better. And in our world, in the Toastmasters world, if you're a distinguished district, that's like, yay, you've reached the pinnacle of what we needed to do. I am the second most successful district director in this district of Arizona. And everyone told me I was a great candidate. I was the perfect candidate, in fact, that I should at least get nominated. Maybe I wouldn't win the election, but I had the credentials. And I just was like, well, oh my gosh, if I'm not qualified, who is? And no dig on the person who actually did get nominated. She's a fantastic candidate. She's going to serve our members well. It was just like, oh my gosh, I'm in shock. My husband thought I was kidding him. I was also incredibly sick when I found out I had this terrible food poisoning. It was just a couple days after Christmas. And I almost was like, I need to have that phone conversation again because maybe I heard wrong. So it was a shock, really.
I think we all have those moments where on paper, at least we feel like we've got it all, and you've demonstrated, you've got the credentials, as you said, and then the answer comes back as no.
No.
Looking back now, and you were sick, and it was like, I hate to use the cliche, but like beating someone while they're down, but that probably is what it felt like. Looking back now, how long has it been?
I found out on December 27th.
To the date. Wow. What time?
Well.
No, I'm kidding.
I don't remember what time, but I remember because, again, I had been sick all the day before, and then I was still not feeling great. And it was Christmas time. And my family was so nice. They delayed opening presents until I could, like, get downstairs because I was not moving. Yeah.
Looking back now about 3 months, what did that moment teach you about yourself?
You know, one of the things that it taught me, and my husband and I have been working on this paradigm since we got married, which is that your volunteer life, the things that you put your time in, is important, but it's not the most important thing. Mm-hmm. And it took a while, but I got to the point where I was like, okay, it's not brain surgery. I'm not saving people's lives. I can do other stuff and still feel like I'm contributing, but it took a couple weeks not to want to burn the world down and scream and really scream from the rooftop like, how did this happen? So yeah, it made me realize that it was important, but it's not that important, and that I was going to be okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's powerful. And I think it's funny. I also spent not as much time and experience in the Toastmaster or the nonprofit world, and people can take some really unserious things very seriously.
Yeah. Well, Toastmasters is a unique organization because unlike other service organizations, we hear people's deepest, darkest stories. Like we hear about people's alcohol and drug addiction, or women who have survived domestic abuse or rape, or, and I've heard speeches that we'd have to do a disclaimer right now, like this may trigger some audiences. So people really pour their heart into this organization because they share, because we're an organization that encourages people to speak and to tell stories. So people get very serious about Toastmasters, and I get it because we deal with the heart, not the head or the hands. We're dealing with what's inside. So people get pretty committed to it.
It's so true. I remember it was my first time leading an open house. And so these are people who've never been to the organization. They come in and I was leading table topics, and I was asking these really what I thought were general questions. And even the guests were getting into like spirituality and God and like all of these things. And I was like, whoa, this is like we're at a Denny's on a Tuesday. Like this is supposed to be light, but it just naturally happens. People tell the stories of their lives in these meetings, and it's crazy. I had a question. So when something like this happened, things like this have happened to all of us. I've been told no at times, or I was really excited for something. And I'll be honest, my immediate response is blaming others. And actually I had a leadership coach when something happened to me in the last few years where I was blaming others and myself, heavily blaming myself that like, oh, I could have done this differently. Why didn't I do that? Did you go through that? And if you did, what was that experience like?
Oh, sure. A million times. I was like, oh my gosh, because I had messed up the time zone and I was late for my interview. So I thought, okay, that's it. That's probably why. What I try not to do is make up a story in my head. Like I could have thought like, oh, well, the chair of the committee didn't like what I said about this. And so I don't know. Right. And I try to not, again, make a story up that makes it better for me. What I try to think about when I think about this experience is that for some reason, it wasn't the right time for me. It wasn't the right time for the organization. I don't like to shrink anymore. I used to say, oh, I'm too much for people. I'm too loud or whatever. And I always think, well, if I were a man, they'd have a different, the vocabulary would be different. So I don't try to make up a story in my head. And I really just try to say, okay, I was as prepared as I could have been. I practiced interview. I had incredible people mentoring me along the way. Well-respected Toastmasters, leaders in their field, in our organization. And for some reason, it just wasn't the time. And maybe it won't be the time ever again. Maybe it will be, but it takes a lot of work, and it's hard to think about, would I do it again?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'm curious. That was a question I was going to ask, and yeah, since you're there, what are your thoughts on trying again?
I joke about it, and I say, well, this was the year I will age myself. I'll be 56 in July. And then by the time I'm done, I'll be 58, and then I won't want to do it again. So I in my head, I was like, this is the perfect timing, because now, like, do I really want to be 58 and doing this when I'm so close to retirement? Like, and we've had obviously board members who have been much older than 56 or 58, and I don't know. And I've struggled with like all the people who love me and who are like, you got to run again, and you're in a club in another region, you could run next year. And I love them and I love their enthusiasm, but it's hard to think about it because I did all the things that I needed to do. like I don't know. I love the encouragement to do it again, but it's a lot. It's a lot.
That's fair. It's like the first time you run a marathon, like I've run a marathon.
Yeah.
And the first time you're like, oh, I can do this. This is fun. Once you've done the first one and you've done the like 6 months of training, then you go back the next year, you're like, now I know what this journey is like.
Right.
Do I want to do this again? Sometimes yes, sometimes no.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I think I like what you said about not creating those stories. That's where I go, oh, well, this person probably thinks this. And it's like, well, do you know that for a fact? And bringing it back to public speaking, a lot of people, I know this is maybe a simple example, but when they get on stage and someone laughs or snickers or does something, it might not even have anything to do with what they're saying, but they'll create a story. That person didn't like my speech.
Yeah.
Or whatever, or I'm not a good speaker. And they've created this story out of things that they've observed, but it's not necessarily the truth. You talked, Rose, a little bit about shrinking yourself, and you're in this phase now where you didn't get it, the disappointment. You're hearing feedback from others, either like, oh, go for the next one, or you did great, or how do you integrate that feedback? How do you know which feedback, for example, the people cheering you on, or someone saying, oh, you know what, Rose, you should have done this differently. How are you integrating that feedback in your process? Not necessarily to run again, but just how are you learning from this feedback?
Yeah, because we are a communication organization and we do a lot of feedback. I got some feedback from the committee, and it didn't feel to me like it was solid. Like there wasn't anything that I felt like I could take away. One of the comments was that I needed to be more collaborative. And I actually told my current work professional manager that feedback, and she was shocked. She's like, oh my God, Rose, you're one of the most collaborative people on my team. You work with everybody. You listen to everybody. And I think that some of that may have been perception of who I was as a leader 12 years ago when I was in that regional advisor position. Because I walked in with a marching band and I knew best, and I knew you were wrong, and I was going to pretty much tell you, right? That's not who I am now. Again, that maturity, like finding confidence and finding really who I was really inside, which is I am strong and I have a strong opinion. And oftentimes when women are told to be more collaborative, it's really code for you need to keep your mouth shut. And it was not feedback that I thought was going to help me to move on to the next level if I wanted to do it again. But then I got feedback from other people, and some of the things that in the process is you have to show that you can think strategically for this organization. And so sometimes those ideas are too radical for people who are embedded in the organization, who have been in those leadership roles. And it's like, oh my gosh, that would be too radical for us. So I took that feedback from other people, me, and I just decided that, okay, if it was too radical, then maybe it's, again, not the time. But also membership organizations are at a crossroads, right? They're declining in popularity. People aren't going. And so perhaps we need to be more radical and create innovation. And I think one of the things that I took with me into that whole process was people were telling me, we need to innovate, we need to innovate, we need to innovate. And I still think that. So the feedback about not being collaborative, I think was a guise to something else. And I think for me, I'm still going to speak authentically. I think when we don't speak our truth and we don't speak authentically, we're doing more harm than good. So the feedback really, I think, was a way to try to get me to do something that I am diametrically opposed to, which is, okay, if I'm too radical, that maybe is, and I'm not really even that radical. Like, I didn't think I was going to go in and burn down the house, or I was going to be the savior of the organization. What I was hoping to do was like say, hey, let's plant some seeds, let's grow some innovation, let's do something. And I think I'm just going to keep doing that.
Yeah. And I think there's so many things I want to talk about that you've just brought up in me. One is we had Darren LaCroix, world champion of public speaking,
I know
on.
Darren well. Yeah.
And he has this concept of qualified coaches. And I love this concept because it almost gives you, you get feedback from everywhere. In Toastmasters, you get it from a brand new member all the way to the most experienced speaker, someone who's speaking in the public arena, someone who's like me, teaching yoga in a gym setting. You get feedback from everywhere. And this concept of qualified coaches or qualified feedback. So know who you're getting it from and take the feedback, listen to it, but understand and put that context and almost give yourself permission. Or it's given me permission not to incorporate everything. It's like, okay, thank you for that. I'm going to note that. I'll think about it. But I think a lot of people, especially coming up if you're doing something maybe you're not as confident in, or you've been told no and you're shattered, it's like you're getting it from everywhere and you don't know what to listen to. So I really like that.
Yeah, I didn't think I needed to shrink myself. And it was funny. I was having a conversation with my brother this morning, and he actually was saying how he felt, and I felt it too, growing up, that no one listened. No one listened to us. We would have, ideas about something, and it took a long time and I think it took a long time to get to the point where people actually like, oh my gosh, she does know what she's talking about, or he knows what he's talking about. And I didn't want to shrink again to that point where you get to a certain point where you are the expert, you are the SME, and hello, you should be listened to. You don't have to do everything I say to do. Just consider it. And that's what I've always done with people giving me feedback. I'll consider it. Doesn't mean I'm going to do it.
Right.
Because I have to know it's right in here.
And change, the other thing that you brought up in me is this idea of change management. And I have a very small example. One of our previous guests on the podcast, Paul Pastore, and I got into not disagreement. I forget what we called it. A misalignment of something. And because I was bringing a lot of technology into this situation, and Paul was very comfortable with pen and paper. And what I learned is over time, like showing them the benefits, but it takes time. And sometimes you really have to break the mold and go against what people are saying. Not all the time, but in this scenario, this particular case of using technology, I really had to push, and everyone hated it the first day. And then the second they used it, they're like, oh, this is better. And some people refused to use it, but then once they started, so it took a couple months, but after that it was like, oh. And so sometimes change is organizational, and you have to get all your champions and mentors and get everyone together and work together. And then sometimes it is radical, I'm using quotes here, until people realize, oh, this works. This is not something. And especially I think in this time that we're in with the internet and AI and all of these things, when we were growing up, our elders, for the lack of the better word, they had all the experience, they had all the knowledge. Now we all have the knowledge. And so this paradigm shift of like who carries the know-how is really changing. And I've seen it in the older generation working with them. It's like it's a hard shift for them too, because they're used to knowing everything, and things are changing so fast that it's almost like the young people know more than, not necessarily, but you know what I'm saying? Yeah. Yeah. So Rose, we talked about feedback. We talked about qualified feedback. How do you stay so confident? The fact that you're willing to talk about this experience here on this podcast, where does that come from?
Oh, lots. Lots. Well, being, again, in an organization that gives you a lot of feedback, I think it also comes from people supporting you, right? If you have a great support system. I've had the same mentor for 23 years, and was the best lady at my wedding, right? So we've developed this really great friendship, but she's also someone who can call me on my BS, right? She'll say, really, what are you doing? And I think also just time and maturity, I guess is the word, or life experience. And I think it has to do with that desire to keep being authentic, right? I spent way too much time, in my 20s and 30s trying to fit into the mold of what other people wanted me to do. I had a lot of you can't, you shouldn't, you won't, we won't let you conversations. And I just say no to those, right? I don't, if I'm not qualified and I can't do it, or I physically can't do it, that's different, right? But when you're qualified and you really want to do it, you should go for it. And that does take some confidence. And there aren't trust me, there were moments where I was crying about this because I had worked so hard. And I just couldn't understand how this organization that I was in, which was saying, find your voice, my voice wasn't good enough. And then I thought, it is good enough. This is, again, maybe not the time, or, we're going to go a different way. And that's cool. Because it really, at the end of the day, it's not the most important thing that I have to worry about, but it's still a disappointment, right? So you just take that and you go, what's next, right? I just keep moving, because the other option is not to grow and learn and listen and move on. And that is not who I am.
I don't talk about this much, but my last job, I left in somewhat of a similar circumstance where I was trying to get to the next position. I had made, I was perceived a certain way by the organization, and I didn't get the job. And very frustrating, very disappointing. And I left. And in that moment, it felt extremely, I was angry, I was pissed of how things went down. Yeah. And I was, there were things that I felt that the stories I created around what was done to me, although looking back, I'm like, okay. And now looking back a year, the amount of growth, even having this podcast, the things that I've done because I've given myself that opportunity to step away, the yoga teaching, the podcast, I have another small business, and things that I've done that I never would have had the courage to do, to leave that corporate environment and have that regular paycheck. And I don't know if I had the courage, I had the anger at that moment to do it, but that opened up so many doors that I can only look back now. It's one of those things, like now I look back, I'm like, why didn't I leave earlier and do all these things earlier? I wasn't ready, but it took this moment, this like fracture in how things were going and not really having something set up afterwards to take the time to do other things. And anyway, that's kind of vague, but looking back a year ago and the progress I've made and the things that I've done, I'm just like, wow. And I never would have done that had I got that promotion. I would be still doing the same thing. I'd probably have similar skill sets that I had back then and not grown in all the different ways. So
yeah, my husband and I have been wanting to spend our summers in New England, and we put that idea on hold for a couple of years because we were caring for my dad. he's passed. And so we were like, okay, that opens up the door to do this adventure. But then I was hoping to be on the board, and that delayed that again, like another 2 years. But rejection is redirection. So now in 40 something days, we're going to leave and go spend our summer in New England. So we got something from that rejection that we've been really wanting to do, because Arizona summers are just too brutal. I can't
It's
do
March
another one.
and it's 100 degrees.
Yeah, it's 100 degrees on March 18th, which is unheard of. And so I think in a year I'll be like, okay, that was, not so bad. Like, we got to have this adventure. We have a photography business. And we just thought, okay, we can up our photography game while we're there. I can do other stuff. I got re-engaged in politics. So now I'm helping some local candidates again, which I had put on the back burner to do this other thing. And I think in a year I'm going to be like, okay.
Yeah.
That's good.
I mean, even seeing your body language now, and even other times when we meet, when you talk about going to Maine, and that's what I was doing. I think that's what people do. They have these big plans for themselves, but they say, oh, after this accomplishment, after this happens. And it's never like, why not now? And it takes, at least for me, and it sounds like similarly for you, it takes this like breaking of the mold, not rejection, redirection, and really thinking about it like that. And honestly, it takes months. Like for me, now I look back, I'm like, dang, I have made a ton of progress, and I never would have done these things. And I can always go back to work, hopefully. If you're out there hiring engineers, let me know. But I can't always have this moment in time with this podcast, with this conversation, with the yoga thing. By the way, I'm starting at a new studio, which is really exciting. Anyway,
great.
All the things. And I so wish that for you. And I feel like it's already happening.
Yeah. And again, like the thing that I really love about my husband is he gets the whole value of time thing. And when we make the decision to commit to something, we do it after long conversations and knowing what we're going to have to give up to do that. And so, not that he was excited that I got rejected, but he was like, okay, well, now we can focus on other things. And we both, like, I am now parentless. His dad is gone. We really take the time and value the time that we have with the people we love. And there isn't a phone call that goes by that I don't tell someone I love them, like, I love you, because you never know, right? Mm-hmm. And so we decide really strategically how we're going to spend our time. And okay, I wasn't on the board. No, it's not. It's never on someone's gravestone, so it's not. Mm-hmm. It's going to be okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So one last question to close this out. As we close out, I want to ask you one last question before our rapid fire. If someone is listening right now and they just didn't get selected, they didn't get that promotion, they didn't get that seat, that leadership role, that thing that they wanted, they were told no, what would you tell them?
I think when I tell a story, I always say, like, oh, the backstory to the front story. So the backstory to this is, if you're going for something, have a plan B. Always have a plan B, because then that's something that you can redirect on. And I always thought, honestly, I thought I would be nominated, and I thought that I would get to that election part. I never assumed I was going to win, right? So my plan B was always to continue to mentor, to continue to be a resource for people, and to continue on my own communication journey. So I had that plan B in place, and I put that into action immediately after. I said I was going to take a break from all the little leadership roles, but I wasn't going to say, oh, I'm not going to be somebody's mentor, because they had picked me. We have that relationship. I don't want to give that up. So have a plan B in case it doesn't work out. And because you have a plan B, then you have a way to refocus that energy. So if you can imagine, I spent 15 months planning, doing, where was I going to put all that energy? And so I put that energy into then being available for my HOA to be on their board. Find something that you can put that energy into and keep looking for the next thing. And for me, I had had a great deal of experience in local politics. So I put that energy into local politics and I put it into my HOA. So now I'm the HOA president and all that.
Oh,
oh, I know.
Congrats.
Yeah. So just, and again, if it's especially something like a Toastmasters or other volunteer organization, it's not the most important thing. You have family, loved ones, hopefully other hobbies, things that will keep you, and it doesn't define you. This did not define who I am as a person. It didn't take anything away from me. Nobody took my birthday away because this happened. You just have to refine the passion for the other things that maybe took a back burner. And just remember, you're amazing, awesome. Just because they didn't see it, their loss, and keep going.
Love it. Thank you, Rose. Okay, are you ready for our rapid fire?
Yeah.
Okay. What book, article, or podcast has inspired you recently?
I finished reading Just Let Them by Mel Robbins, and it was extremely helpful while I was dealing with my dad's decline, because there was a lot of things he didn't want to do. So if he wanted Fritos I gave him Fritos, right? Like I just let them. And it really helped with this experience too.
Nice. What is your biggest public speaking pet peeve? One thing you wish speakers would stop doing?
You're gonna enjoy this. Speakers, stop listening to other people tell you how you should speak. Just because they do it one way doesn't mean it's gonna work for you. So be yourself, your authentic self. Take the advice, but speak the way that you want to speak.
Oh, I love that. Okay, you said you're collaborative. What's your go-to way to collaborate?
I used to be a big phone person, and now everyone's a text person. But for me, it's still the phone. Like, I think there are conversations you just can't have on email, text, Teams, whatever. Sometimes you do need to pick up the phone and have that conversation. I'm not great with confrontation. I know I seem like I could just walk in and be like, but I don't like confrontation, but sometimes you have to face it and pick up the phone and call the person.
I like it. What was your last major public speaking gig and one thing you learned from it? So
my last big speaking thing was a conference that I went to in April, and it was one of those local Toastmaster organizations was disbanding, and so they were having their farewell, and I did a presentation that I love to do. It's called Lead Like an Owner, and especially when you're a volunteer, because you're not the owner, you're not getting paid, but if you lead like it's yours, like you own it, then you take more, I don't want to say accountability, but more heart, more interest in it than you would if you just thought, well, it'll just be fine, it'll run. But if you're the owner, you're wondering why people aren't showing up, why things aren't selling. If you're running a volunteer group, lead like you own it, like you're a franchise owner, like this is yours. And it was received really well. And it's a presentation I love to do all the time.
Nice. Okay, last one. What's one piece of advice you'd give to a new public speaker?
I'm going to totally steal this from my husband. Don't take yourself too seriously. Enjoy the process and have fun. That's totally Tim Swearingen, all you, babe. But I'll take it. I'll steal it from him.
Nice. So if people want to connect with you or follow your journey, where can they find you on your socials?
You can find me on LinkedIn. I actually we were talking about AI earlier and volunteer organizations. I had a great post about AI and public speaking organizations. So LinkedIn, I'm Instagram at Down East Rose. I'm on Facebook. I'm on TikTok under Unscripted Rose. Would love for you to follow. And then my husband and I's photography business is downeasttoastmasters.com or Down East Photographers, Down East Toastmasters, downeastphotographers.com. And we do portrait photography. So
perfect. I will put that in the show notes. Well, Rose, I so appreciate your time and your sharing and being vulnerable in this. Honestly, it's still relatively fresh. And I want to thank you all, the listeners, for tuning in. If you want to hear more, hit that subscribe button. And until next time, we encourage you to speak Arizona.